around to another episode of the Chats with Kanye podcast, and a very interesting one at that. On my left side, Mr. Hangry Camel, as usual, my co-host, and down below, you're gonna see someone that whose face you might seen quite a lot, and whose voice you've definitely heard, JessGOAT. It's definitely going to be interesting to have you on. We have so many topics to go over. Hangry, do you have anything to say before we start this out?
Chats with Kanye is a new venture for us, and it's obviously brought to you by Titan Gaming. Just want to thank Jess for being here and giving us her wisdom in this massive scene that we're trying to grow. And she's obviously got a lot of it. So yeah, we're gonna have some good chats around here. We're gonna touch on some good topics, some personal topics about Jess, and go over some her, and then she's gonna give us some insight about the scene. Yeah, Kanye.
Yikes. I'm having an issue feeding your audio into the stream. So all of yours. So if potentially we could just turn on through OBS Ninja where your webcam was, just turn on your mic there. I think that would be the easiest. Okay. Yes, there we go. Now I can hear you. Easy. Okay. Bit of a technical issue, but we are here. Like I said, Chats with Kanye podcast. On my left side, Mr. Hangry Camel. Down below, JessGOAT. Very interesting podcast that I really want to get into. And really, without further ado, I want to ask the introductory question. How did you get into gaming? How are you where you are? Give us like a brief overview, like starting from childhood. What was your first game?
I don't know how old you both are, but do you remember way back when the PlayStation 2 had demo games and had these like discs, and you'd throw them in your PlayStation 2 and you would get to play, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds to even sometimes up to 3 minutes of a demo game. And I remember there was this one hoverboard game demo thing that came to PlayStation 2, and I think I knew from that moment on that I would just always want to play games in any capacity I could. And then I just did. I threw myself into gaming and all console gaming from the age of like, when was the PlayStation 2? I don't even know what year. I would have been quite young during that time. So yeah, I think I don't know, since I was like 6, 7 years old, I've been doing something, Game Boy, PlayStation, whatever it is, and then slowly moved my way up. So yeah, I'm obviously doing my best to understand where that started for me. But I was looking at that and I was like,
I am so sorry. I got a new microphone recently and it's been messing up my audio sources, and I'm just trying to make sure which one is actually going to project your voice through.
well, let's see. Test.
Yeah,
1, 2, 3.
I think I've gone through most of them at this point. If it's
I
not,
wonder where I am.
perfect. We got it, boys.
Oh.
We're on.
Yeah.
Now everyone can hear me. The voice that is ever so familiar, supposedly. We can now finally hear. By the way, before I start, I know I have very deep accent, but I wish I had the South African accent. I'll be really honest with you. Out of all the accents in the world, I wish I had. It is that one, and that's not even a joke. So that would be cool to have. You guys have awesome accents.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few of those like typical website questionnaires, people saying South African accents are the best. I mean, we living
They
here,
are.
it doesn't, like, we don't realize it a lot that we sound a lot different than anyone else. But, I mean, over on your side, the Australian accent, I mean, my cousin has the Australian accent. It's definitely something to flaunt as well.
Oh, thank you. All right, where were we? Where did you want me to pick back up as I was slowly mouthing to the rest of the world?
So yeah, we just wanted to intro with your origins as a gamer. How did you get into the scene?
Started when I was quite young, PlayStation 2 demo games, 30-second to 3-minute demo games, and then I just got hooked really quickly. I played Mario Tennis on the little handheld Game Boy thing as well, which was like, I was rapt about that game. I was all about it. I'm not sure I knew how to play it properly, but I'm pretty sure I loved it nonetheless. And I played a lot of Pokemon growing up, and then I got seriously into FPS games. I want to say straight after my addiction with Skyrim in my last 2 years of high school, which was like 2011 when that came out. I got really addicted to Skyrim, played heavy that for a while, and then went to university quite young. And I moved over to console gaming because, one, it was cheaper as a student, and two, it's just something that you kind of do when you meet other university people and stuff. Like, I'm playing Call of Duty, come play it. And then I got so heavily invested into Call of Duty, both Black Ops 1 and 2, that in the end I was Prestige Master, like 860. I had so many thousands of hours on that game. I started playing low-level competitive of it as well on the console. And that's probably, 2015 was when I got super heavy. So, yeah, that's when I probably started my big kickoff into competitive and gaming and FPS as a whole.
I mean, what was your first like truly competitive game then? If you started just like you said, university student casual, how did you transition into that scene? Because I mean, most of us we've been playing games since we were like 5 years old. I mean, I started with Wii back in the day. How did you transition into that, truly taking it as a competitive aspect? Because not everyone is into that. Some people just want a Saturday night, they just want to chill on the couch and play some Call of Duty.
I think I'm naturally competitive. I always have been. Whether it's my father pushing me or I'm pushing myself growing up, I've always wanted to be the best at something. If I can be the best at something, I always feel like why not try? And having so many hours in Call of Duty, and I was quite good, at least in my opinion, and I was the main sniper for my particular stack and squad. We used to log into like those websites online like MLG Gaming where you could do pickup games for money. You could bet your $5 or $10 that you'd win the search and destroy or whatever it was. And that's how we would sort of do it. And that was my first venture into putting money on the line or putting something on the line for a game, you know, even if it's $5 or $10. For me, that was competitive to begin with. And then I really got addicted from that moment on. You know, you win one search and destroy, you win two, and then all of a sudden everyone goes, who's this chick that's quick scoping me from across the rock? And I'm like, yeah, well, hold up, you know, try go for the diffuse. I'll be there with you. So probably 2015 was when it really kicked off for me. And realizing that competitive existed. And if it wasn't for my teammates back then pushing me into doing it, then I probably wouldn't have known, to be honest.
I mean, it's a very interesting thing to get in. Not everyone, like I said, gets into that side of gaming, but
yeah,
when you do, it's exhilarating. But another thing I want to ask you is, how do you go from that to you eventually got into more of a background scene in gaming? You were a coach and an analyst after actually being a player. How does that transition happen? How do you realize, okay, I have more to give to a team, maybe in a background role, or I enjoy it more even?
I think it was an accidental thing. And I know a lot of people say that. They go, I accidentally stumbled into this role. I actually did. At the time, I was teaching at a university in Melbourne. I'd finished my bachelor degree, and then I just finished my master's degree. And I was teaching in a university, and I was getting quite serious in my role at the university, and I was about to do my PhD. And I said to one of my co-workers at the time, I said, I feel like I'm getting head stuck into my career, and I haven't done a couple of things I want to do before I get into my career, which was travel, learn a language, all of those things. And I was a little bit concerned that I would, I'd just get so ingrained in my job and addicted to work. I'm a bit of a workaholic that I would never do those things, go learn different languages, travel a bit more than I already have. And they said, well, just do it. They said, I mean, like, if you want to come back to the university in a couple of years after doing it, then like your job, I'm sure, will still be here. If you want it, just go and do it. And I was like, that's a pretty serious thing to say, because like I can't just like go overseas, especially when you're Australian, you know, you can't just get a visa to go somewhere. That's not how it works. So I was like, okay, I'll have a think about it. And my partner at the time was Swiss, so a European trip wasn't off the table for me. And so I thought, you know what, let's take German. So I took a big German semester, learned beginner German, And then I applied with Penta, which was obviously one of the big names in Siege as an analyst. I thought, I'll just apply. Like, who cares? Like, whatever. I'm gonna go to Switzerland anyway. So like, if I get that as well, like that would be amazing. And then all of a sudden, I get this message back, and they go, "Oh, your work was actually pretty good. Do you mind doing it again for another team? You know, you do like a mock analysis of another team and all of those things." I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess I can do another." So I spent I didn't sleep that day at all. I swear I spent like the next 3 hours straight just doing this huge analysis of a couple of teams. And it was really fun. I sent it back, and within 6 hours they said, "Can you jump into a TeamSpeak meeting?" And I'm jumping into a TeamSpeak meeting with people I've watched on Twitch who live 20,000 kilometers away from me, who are stars of the game. And I'm sitting in a Twitch, you know, in a TeamSpeak with them, and I'm like, how did I go from 24 to 48 hours before just going, haha, I'll apply for Penta, haha, to oh crap, I'm literally in the deep end here. I might actually get this job. And I was a nobody from Australia who no one knew overseas. I was not known whatsoever at that point. And suddenly they're like, "We like what you're doing. When are you moving?" And I'm like, I didn't plan this, boys. This is not something where I was like super serious about. But if you want me to be serious, I can be serious. And then boom, it just kind of went that way.
I have to say I can relate to the feeling by literally just talking to you. So, I mean, I can only imagine what that is within the entire Penta team back in the day, the old legacy roster. So, really insane. But I mean, Hangry, I really want to hear your perspective on this as well, because you're a bit older than me. You've gone through those life experiences, like Jess said, of taking that leap in certain terms. How have you been feeling in those terms? Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to see. We've been saying ATK, I mean, JessGOAT, you probably don't know ATK, one of the biggest esports organizations here in South Africa. They've really been pushing Siege in terms, in the last few months, really picked up a roster, and they've been absolutely dominating. Went undefeated in, I believe, 4 tournaments in a row. So definitely been putting up those numbers, and we actually played a game against them the other day, the Titan Odyssey team. Beat them, even though we had connection issues with players lagging out left, right, and center.
So you managed to beat them, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, we had a 4v5 for almost a map and a half out of a 3-map series, and we... Oh, okay.
For 3 rounds, okay. And you still managed to win that? Okay, Oh.
It's fun, my guy. I guess I'll just transition into something else we had. How you, when you join Penta eventually, the inner workings of an org aren't always, the outside doesn't always see it. I mean, you worked for them
Yeah.
for quite a while, and it really seemed like you were there, but eventually it was just a means to an end to where you are now. But what do you think you learned while you were there, and how did you add to the Penta team? Because I mean, they kept you on. You were definitely worth something. I mean, you told us they were so interested in you that within a few days they told you when you're moving over.
Yeah, I think originally they were really happy with my analyst work. And the trouble was, at least at that time, at late 2018 to 29, the start of 2019, I think you don't really know how coaches are thought about around the world at that time, even in Europe or North America, and they actually weren't really a highlight of a team at the time. Like even if you like won a championship, everyone would be like, "Here's the trophies for all the players," and then like the coach like awkwardly stands in the back and like is just like part of the picture, I guess. So at that time, that's what coaches were about. That's really all it was. So for me, I was just a bare basic analyst. My job was to analyze. But it became apparent very quickly that the team needed a lot of assistance really quickly. They'd just gone to Paris to do the, was it the Paris Open Week or whatever it's called there? And they had lost to like no names. And Penta, as they were known, or ex-Mocket now, Penta should not have lost to no-name teams. They should have at least made it to the semifinals. And they got knocked out like quarters or whatever it was. And I watched a lot of their games and I thought a lot of what they're doing wrong is very simple in my mind, very simply fixed. And so I just kept saying more and more things and giving more and more advice. And even though I wasn't there with them, you know, things on WhatsApp, I'd talk to the captain and say, you know, you need to do this and that. And I'd give like, you know, between their maps, I'd give them advice. And it got to the point where in like January of 2019, I was doing so much for the team that at that point I was the head coach. I didn't particularly have the title yet until Six Invitational. But I had done so much when we flew to Sweden. That was my first LAN event. We did DreamHack Winter, and that was our qualification. We had to beat SSG, who had flown all the way over from North America to get the last ticket to the Six Invitational, and we had to beat them. And G2 was there, Liquid was there. There was so many teams there we had to beat, and I felt like I had a huge weight on my shoulders because if you don't get a team to Six Invitational, it's kind of like, what did you do, right, as a coach? And I managed to help the boys get there. I mean, it was a team effort, that's for damn sure. But I really felt like, you know, beyond season 9 of us working together, there became such a breakdown in communication between the players and coaching and what I would consider maybe possibly a lack of respect. I don't think some players realize how important support staff can be, which is fair enough. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. But some players really valued it. Some players really didn't. And that breakdown in communication, I really felt just lost our way from something we could have been really great, I really feel. So I think they saw my potential to begin with, and the organization did as well. And a couple of the players were really happy to bring me on, and we worked really hard. And then you get to like the split between like season 9 and season 10, and people get really comfortable and think that their skills will just lay dormant inside them and that they can go on a big holiday and they come back and those skills will just magically still be there. So as a coach, you can't fix that. Sometimes you got to admit you can't fix something like that. And maybe as a whole, coaches around the world have to understand that you can't always fix everything. And that was the biggest learning curve for me, is you can't always fix everything. You can't always change everything or lead everything. Not every player is going to agree with your style of coaching or the way that you foresee leadership as well. So that's probably the biggest thing to learn as a coach, I think.
I mean, one of the biggest, really, I mean, the new G2 roster, what they did with Shaz, really, I mean, that taught
Right.
everyone that a coach is necessary. I mean, we know how much it brought to that team, and really, I mean, like you said, you brought that aspect to the team, but eventually your run at SI and even further just, I mean, it fizzled out. But still, you
Yeah.
guys made headlines. You were a top team, obviously.
We were a top team.
Literally.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about season 9. No one else was able to beat G2 or Team Empire. Season 9, they were the 2 undefeated teams, and they were the only teams to be able to challenge each other during the regular season. And I sat working my ass off night and day to come up with counter strats for them. And Penta, we were the only teams to defeat both of them in one season when they were undefeated. No other team could come up with the counter strats for it. And a lot of people like to say that, you know, I was part of the reason of Penta getting relegated. Well, sure, that's a team thing. If a team goes down, you're part of the team. If the team rises, you're part of the team. You rise together. That's something you have to learn as a coach, and take the hits where they come. And I think the team never got enough credit for, 1, making 6 Invitational, 2, fighting the best Norengo that's ever existed under the sun, and 3, defeating undefeated teams throughout all of season 9. We were at our peak as a team then, and I would like to think at some point my coaching possibly had a little bit of an influence on that, and just helped the players shine to be the best that they could be, because they were great.
Yeah, they definitely were. I mean, you see almost the same today with the current European League, where, I mean, people have been arguing Chaos have been relegated recently. It's not that they're a bad team. The competition is just so steep. 10 teams, all of them competing at the top tier. All of them, I mean, at the moment, I think we are 1 week away of seeing who are the 4 teams that are going to go to the EU major. I think 8 teams are in contention for that spot. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And what a pleasure to be part of it as well.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if that takes us straight into, could you explain for everybody that, you know, is new to the whole org situation and coaching, and, you know, obviously we've touched on why a coach is important, but what are the different roles within an organization here? So we have a coach, we have an analyst, a strategist, we have the players. If you could just touch and explain the different roles and what they're called and what they do and how they function in that organization to get everybody to the same common goal.
Most teams nowadays that we know support staff are important, and you don't just have one person doing everything. Now you have all these multiple roles, which I think are really important for their own little area of work. And probably the most or the least spoken about role is a manager. And a lot of teams have managers these days. Na'Vi recently brought on a new manager. There's one for G2 as well. You spoke about Shaz. He's not the manager per se. They have their own manager there. And the manager just essentially takes out the how do I say this nicely? Takes out the little crap no one should really need to care about as a coach or an analyst or as a player. You know what I mean? Admin stuff, organizational talks between back and forth, making sure that the sponsor stuff happens with the players or whatever it is. I mean, little things that you as a coach or a player really don't have time to deal with, because you've got to deal with the game stuff. And then you come down from a manager and it goes down to a coach, a head coach, a strategic coach. There's multiple different titles there for how you might have a head coach. But for the moment, you know, someone like Shaz would be a head coach, or you look to, what's another big team and their head coach? I mean, thinking about Omerta for Secret, for example, or there's multiple other support staff there. And the head coach is just the guy that you go, that would be the person standing behind them at the LAN table. Like, that would be the guy that's standing there. Usually their front running guy. He might not be the one making the strats, but he's absolutely the leader of the team. And you look to him, Lycan from SSG is probably the best example in the world at the moment. And so the head coach doesn't necessarily need to be the best at the game. And I think people misunderstand this, that leaders need to have this crazy understanding of the game, so much to the point that they could probably play at a diamond or champion level. Like, it doesn't exist like that anymore. It doesn't need to. I did the role of multiple coaching positions because I had playing experience and I had Excel experience through my master's degree of researching, and I had multiple bits of experience. But nowadays you don't need that. People can focus on one area, and whether that's leadership of a head coach, and then you go further down and you go into analysis, and that's where the analysts come in. And there's multiple different types of an analyst, but a good analyst should know how to, be able to take a multitude of stats, whether it's through CGG, Excel, formulas, And they should also be able to do VOD reviews, whether it's of your opponents or of your own team in scrims. And that's how you sort of break down the support staff in tiers to probably have a really well-rounded support staff for your team. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a great insight into the inner workings, because a lot of people just think you've got the owner of the org. The owner of the org does everything else, and then he manages his players, and it's very quickly in the industry changing. The gaming industry is developing like a business industry, and I think the projections are something like $40 billion in the next 10 years. We're going to rise to those sorts of things, which is just quite something to think about. That the premise behind us was at some stage, or at the gaming industry at some stage, was that we were this random fat guy sitting on a couch. And now we've changed into actual sporting athletes. And people say, oh, it must be hard for you just to sit in a chair and push buttons. We at Titan, we pride ourselves on making sure, and we've got 2 South African, in their perspective, sports champions that play for South Africa. And that's obviously external sports like hockey, and I think they're actually both hockey. So, as a Titan, we pride in that. We pride in the guys being athletes first, and gaming athletes second, and above all their school work. And if that, so it's more than just sitting on the couch now. We've created this industry that's catering for what we need, and it's slowly growing into something that is so profitable that people can actually make livings on. I mean, if I look at my sister, she's 13 years younger than me. I asked her the other day, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the first word was an influencer. And if I had said that, my dad would have laughed at me. And it was the same thing multiple years ago, where I want to be a gamer. And now it's actually something serious. So it's quite a development, and it's quite something to behold.
Definitely.
Oh, that's a really good explanation of that, by the way. That was really good.
Thanks.
So obviously we know gaming is big, and you are almost in the biggest part of it. You're a caster, you work on the production side. I wanted to ask a bit about that. Obviously we've talked about the Penta thing, we've realized how much experience you've built up there. I mean, you talked about doing the VOD review, basically everything on the backside of the team. How do you think that prepared you for the casting role, and how did you even get into the casting role? I don't think a lot of people even know about that.
I was lucky enough that back when I was playing competitively Siege in Australia, way back in, I was playing like Challenger League season 7 or 8, right? So this was years ago when I played Siege competitively, and at the time, Southeast Asian Pro League, it was like done in like my own OBS or Impy and Ewoks OBS from Singapore, and like that's how Southeast Asian Pro League was produced, right? It was just done. So I will say they had some pretty good overlays and stuff for the time of what it was, but it was like nothing other than that, right? No one got paid. You do it if you want, kind of thing. And every bit of like casting that I did at that time was me just jumping in and wanting to give it a go and volunteering to give some of those a go. And I think it was at that time where I did work with Impy. I think without having Impy bring me into those casts, there's no way I get to where I am today, probably in multiple ways. And I think if I think back on that, there's always that one person that kind of gets you involved in an area that you would have otherwise never known about. And that goes for competitive gaming as well. There's probably been multiple catalysts in my life for multiple parts of this. And I was doing a couple of Southeast Asian Pro League ones, and which actually technically made me the first ever woman Pro League caster in the world. But I mean, was Southeast Asian Pro League really Pro League? You know what I mean? Like, you got to quantify it at the time, I guess. And I loved it, and I loved the teams, and I loved the names, and I actually am casting some of the same names I used to cast years ago back then, now in Asia Pacific North League, which is wild to me. It's absolutely insane. And so I'd done a little bit here and there, and I'd done a little bit of CSGO as well, because I'm a freelance caster for CSGO. And there was times during my casting where I said to Ubisoft, like, I can be on an analyst desk. Like, there's no conflict of interest for things like Benelux or other leagues where Penta's not even involved and never would be. And then my first ever desk was when I made a controversial tweet Ubisoft UK or whoever it was, and I said something like, it would be, when are you going to get a woman on the desk or something like that? Because like we've never had a woman, we've never had, at that time, we'd never once had a woman on a desk at a high tier level or on a cast at all ever. And I said, like, jokingly, like, well, off the shoulder, off the cuff kind of comment to say, like, you should get me on because I'm a woman, I'm good representation. And I thought it was inherent that I know my stuff. So I didn't really need to say that too. But everyone was like, oh, you're saying just because you're a woman, you should get the spot. I'm like, no, I know my stuff. I have thousands of hours in this game. I was an ex-player. I'm a pro league coach. Like, I should feel like maybe a little part of me feels like I kind of have the knowledge to be on the desk, just saying, you know, but diversity is good too. And so they emailed me and they said, yeah, look, let's give it a go. Let's chuck you on the desk. We'll fly you to the United Kingdom and we'll get you on the desk. And that was my first ever time on the desk. I was very nervous. And I obviously look back at it now and go, oh, there were so many keywords that I just kept repeating from nervousness and, you know, your first kind of proper produced kind of thing. That always happens. And then my next one was the Betterlocks finals, of which I worked with Zoronic, my good friend Alex. And him and I think quite did that justice, that desk. There was a lot of controversy around it. So I think that's really when I kind of kicked things off as an analyst. And then, I was kind of known like as an analyst twofold in a team and on the desk. And it wasn't hard for me once I had finished with Penta. I did speak to Ubisoft at the time. I said, if there is something that is going to pop up and you want me to get involved, let me know, because I'm thinking I'm done with coaching, because after the whole shebang with Penta, I said to myself, it's not really worth that kind of headache. You know, I was a criminologist. I could just go back into criminology. And I said, I'll go back into criminology, but if you've got something waiting for me, I'm happy to stay because I feel like I still have more to give for the Rainbow Six community. And they said, you know, come 2020, we think we might have something, but we can't say for sure now. And this was back in mid 2019, late 2019. And I said to myself, do I wait? Do I not? Then I took a job with Samsung Morningstars, of course, and moved to Italy and worked with them. And I couldn't get my visa there because Italy is a bit crazy with how they look at esports. It's not really, I don't even think for the next 10 years they're going to consider it a job, which is a shame. So you couldn't really apply for a job visa under that threshold. And so not being able to get that visa was the best thing that ever happened to me, because Ubisoft heard it and they went, yo, she's free. And we have this new system with FACEIT coming in. We also have Six Invitational. She's already been on 2 desks. Let's throw her on our desk, use it as a trial run. And you guys want to know a little like Easter egg secret? Grand final. I got on the grand final desk. Zoronic, me, and Milosh were on the grand final desk for whatever reason, right? I don't know how I got on the grand final desk, but okay, my first ever Six invitation, no problems. Throw me on the grand final desk. And right before the reverse sweep from SSG, I get pulled aside in the back talent room where you do your hair and makeup and stuff. And they pull me aside and they go, Jess, we think we want you, you know, more full time. We're building this studio in Paris. It means you would have to live there and everything, but we want you full time. This is right before I step on stage for the reverse sweep of SSG on the desk. And I walk out of that talent room realizing what I've just been offered, which is, I mean, that what you got to be 0.00001% of the entire esports community to even get offered something of that nature. And I walked over to some of my friends and I looked at them like wide-eyed and I said, I have to get on the desk. I'm panicking because I had something really good told to me. I can't tell you what it is, but all I can say is I need help because my heart is going a million miles per hour. And then I had to get on the desk and pretend like I was fine, which to this day, I want to go back and tell the guy who obviously, you know, pulled me aside from you. So I want to go back and tell him that was really bad timing, by the way. You could have waited until after, and then I could have had like a little panic attack and everything then. But I had to put my serious cap on, and I will never forget that moment. That moment was the craziest moment I've ever been offered a job. And I, even with that Penta story and everything, that was wild. So That's the best story I reckon I have. Yeah.
You went straight from just casting Benelux League and doing the
Yep.
APAC earlier, straight to SI. It
Yep.
seems mind-boggling. Like everyone's dream is to make it to SI, and here you are, just literally getting your golden ticket there. And once you have your golden ticket, you get
It was
the
just
one
an
up on
email.
that.
It was just an email. Like I get an email in my inbox, and I go, does that say SI? I'm like, they want me to work SI? I'm like, okay, let me have a think about it. Yeah, like who's gonna deny working SI? Like, come on, that was ridiculous. And I was just like, oh yeah, casually send me an email. And they're always so casual about it, like you're expecting it. I'm like, no.
I think we need to give something to you that you should have expected it. I think you've proven that you could, and I mean, who else better to do the job?
I mean,
I don't think it's a long list, and I think you're on it.
I think my worry was, at the time, the only person who was like endemic to Siege was Kixar. And he was so far above, at least in my mind, he is so far above anyone else in the game. I think he's so far even above Intero, for example. I don't think you could put Intero in a color casting role and he could do anywhere near the justice that Kixar does for our game. I just think that the level that he produces for our game is phenomenal. And at the time, he was that dude that knew everything about the game, ex-pro, etc. So if I'm like one of the next in line outside of Zeronic, right? Because I've got to look at Zeronic on the analyst desk and go, well, damn, I got to compete with him too. If you've got those two guys you're looking at, you're like, how do I get to that level? How do I pull myself up to that level? And I'm a woman as well. I'm the first woman to be broadcast throughout Rainbow Six on that kind of screen. How do you feel? What do you do? I don't know. I just had to do it. I just had to hold my breath and jump into the deep end.
Yeah. I mean, literally your golden ticket event, and then you get offered the one up on the golden ticket right there.
You
the
essentially
fact you're
walked
bringing
in.
it up. Yeah, wow.
You essentially walked in and were handed the keys to the Charlie Chocolate Factory. And I mean, there's a movie called Series on Unfortunate Events, but I think you've shown that your life and all the things that you've done have given you the series of fortunate events that have just put you into the place exactly where you want to be. And it's not working hard for it. You've shown that you worked extremely hard. As you said, you spent hours working on an analyst, and within 6 hours they decided there's genuine work behind that. And I think, Kanye, I'm going to skip over quick one or two questions, and we're going to go just because we're speaking about it. But in terms of the gaming industry, and we've touched on it a little bit, and that's that being a female in the industry, it's a very difficult place to be. And as we know, it can be a lot of backlash and a lot of hatred that comes from these things, but there's also a lot of positive things, I'm sure. So if you could give us some, what some positive and criticism feedbacks of being a female in the industry. Obviously we've got the normals, like the incident that happened with Geometric, which is, something that we don't like to see in the gaming industry. And how do we step forward? How do we, from females' point of view, because, us as guys, it's hard to understand if you're not a female, and sometimes you can understand, but it's better to get that full holistic view so that everybody sees. We need to have this change in the industry. What are your thoughts on those, and how do we get there?
It's funny you bring Geo up, actually, because she'd be the type of person who would say, I've not gone through any of the sexist parts of gaming for the most part that a lot of other women have. She said that multiple times, and I think that's great. I think it's great that she's had such a smooth sail in the esports industry so far, up until recently, of course. But that her journey's been quite easy. But for the most part, I started my competitive Siege career in Australia. And a lot of people who play in that server know it is one of the most toxic communities. Not all the players are toxic. There's some really lovely people in Australia, there is. But if you're talking about a community that is really hardcore, Australia would rank top 4 by far, like easily top 4. And you either put on a steel plate of armor in that community, or you lose your mind. You wouldn't last 6 months. There's no way you get through it. And so for me, I feel like I was kind of built or hardened by the community before I got thrust into the bigger side of it, where you're obviously under the microscope by a lot of people, and you're gonna get trashed on no matter what you do, no matter how good you are. I even feel that today. I feel like, and this is gonna sound like a ridiculous thing for me to say, but I listen back to some of my casts, and I can understand why some people find my voice annoying. Not because of the accent, not because of anything, but because I have a higher pitched voice. And if I'm noticing that, can you imagine people who are less inclined towards women as a whole, even just slightly, they were less inclined to women, and enjoying their listening to them cast or speak or give them a platform whatsoever, then you imagine how many people beyond even myself are going to turn around and go, woman speaking? Nah, that's not for us. And it wouldn't matter what came out of my mouth, I feel. I think it's just the moment I open my mouth, I'm in a lose-lose situation a lot of the times, that I've worked hard to kind of, shroud that down a bit. I think I don't like to play the gender card because I feel like I've done pretty good considering I am a woman. The one time I did try and play it was that first time I got the analyst desk at UK Prem, and I got absolutely slapped across the internet for playing the diversity card. Absolutely slapped across the internet like I've probably never been slapped across the internet before. And that was a real wake-up call to me that was the first time I'd ever really spoken about being a woman and whether or not that diversity could really be a thing in our game and everything, And the moment I brought it up, it's just like, boom, I've sparked off a dynamite here that I didn't even know existed. And all of a sudden I'm playing the gender card, and I didn't even realize that was what I was doing. I just wanted diversity. I don't care if it was me or another woman or another trans woman. Like, I didn't care who it was. I just wanted some female representation in our game because we hadn't had it before, outside of Goddess and stuff who were players. They weren't commentators. She wasn't an analyst or anything like that. So yeah, I think it exists. I think some people try and hide it. And some of those people are your colleagues. Some of those people are your bosses. Some of those people, you've got to work twice as hard as your male colleagues. And people say that you don't, but you damn well have to. And I've noticed it in multiple of my jobs in esports.
So, I don't know if this is specific to Siege community or the gaming community to say, but there isn't that leg up that the female gamers and the females in the industry need. And I feel like there should be that avenue for them to speak and talk and get as any other male should have that opportunity. They should be having those opportunities. And I think there's a big shift that needs to come in. And with more outspoken females such as yourself that are getting into positions where they've got a platform, I think it's showing other females that are getting into the game that, hey, it can be done, and there are people out there that will support us. And I think those women and those females that are doing that, they need to be treasured and they need to be helped in the community instead of told they're a noob and they they don't belong. It's not that. So I think in the gaming industry, there's a long way to go. But there are some positives that, Ubisoft can just approach you and go, hey, we're going to put you on the biggest stage next to some of the biggest names. I mean, that shows that they are committed to that. And
Ubisoft is one of the most open and diverse companies I've probably ever worked with. I mean, the moment I said I wanted Fluke in the EUL team, because Fluke, she is like an amazing, like to listen to her cast is like something else, right? Like a wordsmith. She just knows how to be lyrical with what she says. I would say like she's on the other end of the spectrum where she can speak about so many different words and sentences and make them sound fun, and I'm like the brains of it, right? Like when I cast with her, I've done Red Bull stuff with her before, and I'm like the brains of it, and I don't really have the kind of panache in my words and structure that she would. And when they said, well, who do you think's ready to step up, I said Fluke. I said straight away, fluke. And there was never once a question when she asked to change her name, her first name over to Emily. No one questioned it. Ubisoft just went, oh yeah, do you want Emily or do you want M? Do you want us to change like any of the other cards or the names that go there? Like, no, Ubisoft didn't even blink an eye at M changing names, wanting to transition. They just went, oh yeah, cool. What do we change for you? And I was like, hang on. In any other workplace, someone coming to you and saying, I want to change my name, my identity, and my gender would be a huge talking point. They would talk about, whether or not we should change it now, how this would look to the public, blah, blah. They said, we don't care how this looks to the public. If this is you, then we want you as you are, and we put you on the screen as you are and how you feel comfortable. You want to dress a certain way? Yeah, let us know. You're experimenting with makeup? Go nuts. Do it on our screen so we can see how it looks. I mean, name another company that's been that welcoming to so many diverse parts of our community. I can't name one. I can't name a broadcast that's been able to do this.
And that's a completely different side that we don't often see, and that's an insider side that we don't see in the mainstream media. We don't often see these things, so it's good to see, and it's good to hear that Ubisoft are taking a stand, especially in this current environment where they're being accused of certain things. So it's good to get an insider, like, sometimes news that's not news is not worth telling because it's not juicy. I think that's better news than any other news, that there are companies out there that are making the change and are investing in doing such a thing.
Yeah.
Talk about investing. I thought I'd just transition us into. I wanted to ask. I mean, I don't know if we wanted to say anything more there, but we wanted to ask you a bit about the upcoming Rainbow Six Siege World Cup that was announced. It's a great event to bring light to nearly every, and that's why we want to bring it up, region in the world. It's going to bring, the Middle East, North Africa scene has been rising. We're going to get a few players from there in next week's podcast episode. They've been building it up, through to the Asian Pacific, Southeast Asia, South America, all of these regions getting representation, and it's going to be amazing to see them all go head to head in an amazing event. But I wanted to ask you, not only your feedback on the World Cup itself, what are you looking forward to, but what you find wrong with it, because obviously we have a biased opinion. We see, okay, we're not represented, that means it's not fair. But as someone that works with all of these regions, that sees the evolution of all of it, what are your positives and negatives from this new announcement?
I'm not afraid to hit the nail on the head straight up here. Let's be frank. When's the last time you have watched a sporting event? I'm Australian, and so I'm very sports inclined, traditional sports inclined. When's the last time, especially as an Australian, you haven't seen a South African inclusion in any sport that is popular at the moment? I can't think of one. I cannot simply think of one where I have not seen your flag a part of it. And if that's what we're doing in traditional sports, you look over to esports, and I don't know what the limitations are. I don't know what would stop you from including an entire region of players. But for me, it doesn't make sense in any way, shape, or form, because you're missing a flag that is integrated in every other sporting event I watch across the world. How come we don't have it involved in our game? That's the biggest gripe I have, is that MENA was left out for a long time. And we complained and we complained and we complained. South African servers for the damn game, years after the game was released, were left out. Where are the servers? And people would message me all the time, especially from the MENA regions, and said, can you help us, Jess? Is there something you can say to someone to just get us noticed? Because we love the game, we want to be involved, but we're playing on 100 and something ping and whatever it might be. And I don't want to get overly angry and then they turn around and go, oh, it's because of this logistical or administrative restriction, we can't have this country or this region involved. Okay, no problems. But I would like to think I'm intelligent enough to identify that there is not really any political or otherwise stopping element from having this certain region involved, let's be frank. So for me, when I look at it outside in, it doesn't make sense. You guys have a region of players and they committed to adding an entire server for you. So where is the problem? Where lies the problem here in not having this region involved? So I am very heartfelt on it, because I was the same heartfeltness about the MENA region. And since we started having MENA games, there's been one player who has been like hailed the Shaiko of MENA. Like, we're just seeing this dude now. How dare we have hidden him for this long?
Yeah.
How dare we have not had a platform to play that way?
We're getting him on next week for the podcast. I'm really excited for that one. Yeah, Valentino is coming on next week. I really want to hear that man's opinion. I mean, literally, he is...
Oh, my God.
I think back to it. I mean, what happened with Empire and even Force back in the day is it was really an untapped gold mine. You didn't know what came out of that scene. And when it did, they went through to the finals of the Six Invitational. There are so many untapped regions. I mean, we look to, you were saying Italy trying to get their visas sorted, a few South American players even. It's an untapped gold mine that, I mean, I don't want to like flaunt it out that much, but I mean, South Africa has that potential. It's good to see the players that, I mean, it's almost like you can play the game, but without representation. There's a survey, we gave this to you, but we're not going to give you the ultimate prize, it seems. It's and it's a sad thing to see, but I mean, eventually it's what we all hope for. I mean, I don't think anyone here is against inclusivity. I think if everyone could get represented, that's what everyone would want. So I guess maybe, like you said, some logistical issue, but I mean, yeah.
I do wonder, like, you have to, I don't think it's wrong to ask the question. Like, even in my position working with them, I don't think it's wrong for me to turn around and go, hey, I love you guys. What you do with me and others is great, but what you do over there is not so great. So what's going wrong with over there? I don't think it's wrong to point out that there's an area that is sorely lacking attention or whatever. And I know my trouble is that there's so many different Ubisoft teams around the world that deal with different regions. And of course, there's also tournament organizers that deal with them. So like Oceanic or APAC South is dealt by ESL. APAC North is half run, well, not even half run, it's 90% run by ESL, 10% by Face It and us broadcasting it. I know other regions have different tournament organizers that run things. So whether or not it's that divide between the tournament organizers and Ubisoft at the top and how everything goes down between the management and so on and so forth, maybe that's a thing I don't understand, and rightfully so. So I still don't think you announce a World Cup and I'm sorry, and then there's a big flag missing.
Yeah, you don't include.
At least explain it.
Yeah, you don't include where you've put servers. That for me is the biggest one. You've put servers in certain places. Include those places. You've put servers there. Just make them the stock standard guys that you include. And as you say, we don't want to get upset about it all, but we do feel like, first of all, we waited 3 years for servers. And me being a console player, I had to wait longer because of obviously they only came to PC for a while, then they were testing and then moved over to console and then now moved over to PC. So, yeah, as soon as they came, I remember tweeting out like, hey, Ubisoft, I know you guys have just surprised us with servers, but we're still on 220 ping. What's going on here? And then literally the next day it was sorted and it was like, oh, are they here? Awesome. And like the community just went from no but nothing to like, tournaments. And now we're having a tournament almost every weekend. I mean, currently Titan is entered into 2 tournaments. We're currently playing 2 tournaments. I mean, this week we played 4 games, awesome. I think it was. So it's just taking off. And this is just the servers have given us the platform to do what we're doing now, which is amazing. Give us the platform, Ubi. If anyone's watching from Ubi, give us the platform.
Yes. I mean, it's not even about, and this is what I'm worried a lot of people think about, is that they think about the differentiation in skill level. And you got to think, I'm trying to think of a region that started off weak that's kind of strong now. Yeah, all right, let's go with Italy. I know the Italians are going to hate me for saying this, and, you know, scusate. Italy started off quite weak. And now it's to the point now where even I got paid a salary to coach a tier 3 team. That growth in such a short period of time could not have come unless there was all these broadcasts. They had a LAN finals, of which I attended with the team as well. They had a bunch of investment. They've got their own Ubisoft entity inside of Milan, where they operate Ubisoft out of for Ubisoft Italy. I mean, everything took time, but things couldn't take time if you don't start them to begin with. And that's my worry, is that they look at some of these regions and go, oh, they're probably a little bit underdeveloped in their skill or growth or whatever it might be, administratively, player-wise, player count, whatever it might be. I don't know. And then they kind of just let that fester and they don't fix the problem. They just kind of let it grow into more and more problems until hopefully someone within kind of fixes it. And it takes people like you to point out that actually that's not how you fix it. That's not how you grow a region. And everyone should know by now, it's been 5 years, that that's how you kind of go about it. So I am worried that maybe somewhere along the line of management, there is a misdecision about your region. There is a misinterpretation or a misidentification as to what the problem is or how the growth needs to go. Or they've turned around and they've said, for this year, it's not administratively possible, but with the growth that you're currently seeing, come next year, World Cup is absolutely on the table for you guys. I don't know what that talking ground might be, but I'm speculating, hopefully maybe that's the talk. They just never communicated it.
So would you say that would you agree that the lack of service, if we took out growth, the lack of service has stunted the growth or stunted I wouldn't say the skill of the players, because a lot of these guys play CSGO, they play Valorant, so they do have this skill behind them. And we've got, I mean, I don't know if you know, but Titan Games, the whole 5-man are all Xbox players. We all come from Xbox. So to come from Xbox on a controller and then pick up the PC and into our first tournament, come second, and now into our second and third tournament, and we're rivaling ATK and Momentum Warrior and those big guys. This shows that the skill is there. So if we take the skill out, the development of the region, do you feel the region is behind because of the lack of service, because of the lack of support from UB on that floor?
Yeah, because my best example is MENA. My best example is guys like Valentino, for example. That is my comparative example for you guys, because if I'm someone who's been a part of 3 different regions, I've been part of APAC South, I've been a part of the European, and for the most part, I know most things about North America. Canadian League, not so much, because that's pretty much brand new, let's be honest. And I look at all those regions and I quantify them as a whole, and then I compare them to I don't know, if I said to a player in the European server, oh, do you know that player Valentino? No. 9 times out of 10, they're absolutely going to say no to me. And then if I said to someone, did you know there were South African servers? Now we're getting even lower down in the tunnel. People would say no to me. In those regions, they would say no. They wouldn't even know you could change your server to the South African server. And that's the issue, is that it feels like it's too young, and or it's underrepresented, which makes it seem younger than it is. That's my worry, is that we continue to make it seem younger than it is, when actually the South African scene's been thriving since the inclusion of the servers, and even before. But predominantly once the servers kicked in and it gave it, a realism or a real factor to it. My worry is that you guys might have a lot of really good players there, and not much. You do. I've even read a Red Bull article about someone starts with X. Their player name starts with X. Thank you.
Koza.
There was a whole Red Bull article on that particular player, and I only read it because I like to read some of the Red Bull stuff, and I've done some work with them. But for the most part, who else is going to get a handle of these articles? Who else is going to see these people? So you're kind of like the younger version of players like Valentino, who are now getting that MENA League. And I don't know how to put you there. I don't know how to get you into that spot yet. But I kind of hope that there's a way. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have someone in your region that streams in English at a high level or produces content at a high level? Even someone like that to get enough recognition to the general public of competitive gameplay could even just be enough. I don't know what the best plan is here.
Honestly, that's exactly what I thought with this podcast. Reach a bigger audience, to build something, make a reputation, show people we worth it.
That you guys are serious.
Exactly that. And well, that's why we're so grateful that you've been on. I mean, literally you, Valentino, next week, I've been genuinely surprised how much support has been coming towards us. Like, I genuinely did not think this was possible. And I mean, even I do casting streams of the local teams. It's been getting international reach. Every now and then I get a player from Europe, North America, APAC coming in saying, wow, I didn't actually know this existed, and I love watching it. I feel we're at the brink of something with big tournaments coming up. You've got the representation internal, at least. And that's something I wanted to touch on, is internal versus external reach. Obviously, if we could get that external, the World Cup, it would be insane. It would make or break. But even internal, we're trying to build it. And I feel like external, obviously, like I said, it's the goal. But internal, even, we're building it ourselves. And we feel we'll get there eventually.
I think Australia had to do that as well, especially in the early days. That came out of all internal growth. Like, Ubisoft Australia was like run by like a few guys who like ran it through the Discord, and the Discord was like your way to be part of anything. And in fact, it still is to this day. Like, you want to get part of LPL or those other parts of it, it's all done through this one Rainbow Six ANZ Discord. Like, that's been like how you do things. None of this like, oh, you log in to face it, you know, everything's properly administrated. Like, nah, this is all done through like whatever it is. And it's so much better these days. And Australia obviously is elevated tenfold, and through Fnatic and multiple international appearances, we're taken far more seriously. But it is unfortunate, because I don't want to say everyone has to go through that initiation of someone brings it off the ground. But I feel like, unfortunately, in gaming now, like maybe in 20 years, this is so damn different. But now, as it currently exists, it feels like there needs to be those group of people that go, our region or our game or our group or our team or whatever it is matters, and we actually can bring something to this. And so they're the ones that elevate it, and they do the hard work, and then someone kind of just yoinks it off the top. And that's the sad fact. But you can walk away proud that you made and you built the foundations for your region and your part, and go, we might not get credit for it, because let's be honest, probably half the Australian guys that did that don't get the credit for it that they so, you know, duly deserve. But at least it got off the ground and it's kicking. I don't think it needs to be that way, but that's kind of how it is, you know?
And I think you've said something very poignant there, is that as a community that's growing, we need to focus, and I'm not sure who tweeted it out, but I saw the tweet the other day, and if I do find it, I'll retweet it. But it was saying in simple that these small leagues like we are in, or these small scenes, we need to start working together to build our community instead of breaking.
Can you hear him?
Oh, I've lost Hangry there.
Yes, I think he's having an issue. I don't know what's going on.
He was onto a good point, though.
He was leading into something, but
he was going good.
His webcam disappeared as well. I don't know if he's getting load shedding or his powers. You probably don't even know what load shedding is. It's a system in South Africa.
No.
It's a system in South Africa where it's really stunted out. Like, honestly, of all the things, that's probably the one thing that stunted our growth the most. In South Africa, our power utility company, Eskom, has had a few issues recently, and every now and then the grid gets oversaturated, like too much demand, and they literally have to cut off power to major metro cities, regions, for like 2 to 3 hours at a time, and they have like a set schedule that you can go towards, but it really just screws everything over.
So wait, is it randomized throughout the day, or do you know that it possibly will happen?
So we know that it's gonna happen at the very least. We know we have a schedule that comes out, and that's kind of what everyone bases their days off sometimes. But it's really bad. Like, just going without power. Like, it's something that most people, I mean, European people, literally anywhere else, even in the world, you take it for granted. But it just disappears every now and then.
How often is that? Like, how often are we talking?
So at the moment, for the last, say, month, it's been good. But even like throughout, when COVID was hitting hard, obviously industries weren't demanding that much power. So it was better recently. But at some point, you'd get 2 power outages a day of 3 hours. So you can't cook dinner sometimes. You can't watch your favorite TV show. You can't play a Rainbow Six Siege game. It's really bad.
Oh, I'm being humbled here by my freaking growth in both Australia and Europe as well, turning around and going, power outages are like they're random for us. That's like someone's driven into a pole or some lightning strike. Like that's a freak accident for us. Like for the most part, power stays on regardless, right? And if it goes out, then like people are so mad, like it's so unexpected. So, geez, welcome back, Hangru. We can hear you. In some capacity.
Yeah, so the stream can't hear him at the moment. He's just trying to get his webcam on. But for the meantime, I actually wanted to chat a bit with you about the current EU standings. I mean, most South Africans here, I think we more closely correlate to the European League. I mean, most of us watch it at the very least. I mean, we used to play on European servers. So the current EU standings, I've been looking at it for so long. I've been watching as a proud G2 supporter. I don't know if you can see my G2 plushie in the background. But at this point in time, we've seen so many teams enter the scene, and a lot of them legacy teams, obviously. I mean, 2 new teams came in from Challenger League this season with no relegations. Something I've been wondering for so long is, as a caster, or even for us as spectators, it gets a bit oversaturated. But as a caster, obviously you keep track of literally everything. That's your job. At least you don't have the NA3 best of 3 system. I mean, for viewers at least, it's an absolute nightmare to keep up. But
I'm glad you agree, because
it's
that is something that everyone's like, best of 3, it's the best to watch. Like, yeah, maybe if you're like the 0.01% of the competitive community that is like has nothing else to do with their day and just loves comp, like it doesn't have to be 6 invitational every day. Like what is that? You know? But yeah, go ahead.
Competitive integrity, yes, but like, yeah, it's hard to uphold. I mean, viewership drives the game. A lot of people don't realize, I mean, when you don't have the viewership, you can't have the game. It's sure you've got competitive integrity, but at what cost? I mean, it's hard. But I mean, what was I going to ask? Oh, oversaturation in the European League.
Yeah. How do I say this without like getting myself into like a pickle? When is the Rainbow Six channel offline?
Never.
Like when the season is on.
It's on every day, I'm pretty sure at this point.
It's every single day. And if you've got a multi-broadcast, like for us, we'll go from like EU to LATAM or APAC to Latin America, or EU to North America, or then Fridays EUCL, which is also on the main channel. I mean, I am happy we have so much competitive prowess to display to the world. I am very proud of that, absolutely. But my God, if I had a job outside of Siege, how could I watch games? Like you have to, like, now it feels like you have to have an allegiance to one region, otherwise you are scatterbrained across multiple regions, missing multiple matchups, only getting what your timeline can even possibly give you in your day or your week. It's impossible. I don't know what the fix is to that. Let's be frank, because like I love my job and I love working, I love money too. So that's all things I have to think about as well. But I also think that for the love of our damn game, if I was a spectator outside of my job, can I honestly tell myself I would be able to watch those games? No way in hell. And would I feel like there's too much Siege? Damn straight I would. So I have to look at it honestly as well.
I mean, the question is the viewership. I can't pull up exact stats, but it's remained relatively the same. Do you think some people, I mean, obviously, I'd say the community gets scattered in a sense. People still support their main teams. They just don't watch the other broadcasts as well.
Yes.
Do you think it's hurting the overall scene because individual teams don't get as much exposure? Like, sure, they're playing more, but they don't get more viewers because people are only sticking to their one team, which is playing more. So they have to watch that more and they can't watch other things more.
I think that's kind of like a twofold question, or it's got a twofold problem to it rather, because on one hand, organizations investing in our scene like G2 or now BDS is getting quite a reputation for themselves in our game. They deserve more viewers because, let's be frank, there are far bigger organization who brings far bigger investment to our game beyond just investment in the players or whatever. Their social media account just hit 1 million followers. That's just Twitter alone, not including their YouTube or whatever. They post one clip of Pengu and they've brought more viewers over to our matchup than the friggin' R6 Esports EU account does on a weekly basis. And that's one tweet about our game. No wonder the G2 games are the most viewed by far out of all EUL games. And that's something money can't buy. You know what I mean? That's something they've grown over years and years of growth. So those organizations deserve it. Is that to criticize other organizations for not being as big? No, damn not. You know, Chaos, for example, it's not a huge organization, especially in Rainbow Six, but they're a well-known, consistent organization in EUL. So everyone knows the organization. Everyone's familiar with the logo. Some of the players who have been part of Nordic or part of the team for a very long time, shout out to them for being relegated. It's been a long time coming, unfortunately, for Chaos. They've sat middle pack in Pro League for however many seasons. It's been super unfortunate for them to finally reach this. But it happens to everyone, let's be honest. My worry is that organizations don't work out the fact that in order to get extra growth in Siege and extra viewership, of which Ubisoft is working very hard to do for them, is that they need that social media presence, because you can't just expect people to stay and watch a team they don't know or players they don't know. And that you want to work from the top up or the bottom up or the top down or whatever you want to do. It starts with the players who stream, who have a social media presence that people know about or are fans about, even just outside of their game. They're the ones that bring value to their organization. The organization can better market them. Ubisoft can better market the organization. And it's a top-down view. But you've got teams like, let's say Tempra, for example. It's an brand new organization from Italy. I used to work with the owners who used to work with Samsung Morningstars, and they build this brand new organization, but their marketing is so, let's be frank, freaking horrific that no one even knows who the heck Tempra is. No one cares. Some of them have an allegiance to one or two of the players, let's say, because they're a French lineup. But outside of that, someone's going to see the Tempra logo and go, I have no idea who this is. Is this tier 3?
I mean, definitely.
Yeah, fair enough.
When the first game they played in EU, I did not know who it was, because they changed roster name. I kept up a tad bit with Challenger League, but it's hard. But you mentioned the players streaming. I mean, we all know the meme when does Bolo play. Is Mr. Hankrig back? Okay.
Slightly in some way. Hey.
Okay. Yikes. Just try and get your camera back as soon as possible, my man. Okay, I'll quickly paste that in.
Excellent. Let's get you back up on the screen. It was a good point. We went off on another tangent, but it was a good point.
There we go, he's back.
Hey.
In full capacity. So, I don't know, Hungry, if you want to continue where you left off, if you can even remember through your trying to sort out your internet.
Yes. So I was touching on the point that this person, as I said, I couldn't remember who exactly it was, but they were touching on the point that as a community, especially a growing community, we need to start looking out for each other instead of playing against each other. And obviously the tournaments are against each other, but we need to grow the community together. And I think that is the most important way that we're going to find reach here, and they're going to see. And I think that is the factor that is stopping us from being in the World World Cup, is that they might see us as everybody for themselves, and they don't see us as a region. They see us as a bunch of teams in a region. And
that's a really good point you bring up.
Yeah, if they start seeing us as a region of teams and not a team of region, like that sort of thing, where we're just a bunch of teams in this region, and we're actually a big region, I think that could be our catalyst to getting there. And I know anybody watching, that's where we want to be. that's where we aspire to be. That's where everybody would love to be, seeing us all represented on that stage. And I mean, I think we would want Kanye as our South African commentator next to whoever it might be. If it might be JessGOAT, or it might be Kickstar, or that's our dreams. And Kanye's got his dreams in his commentary side of things, and we're doing our best to do what we can, and then I think that for us is our poignant thing, that at the end of the day, it's not just Titan against 80K, against Momentum Mori, against all these top teams. It's South Africa representing South Africa, and our teams need to come together and realize that. And I think any region that is watching that also feels that they're too small and they don't have a say, that's your avenue. Build your team and build your community around your region, and promote that. And I know you guys were touching on some marketing things, and I've got a marketing degree, so I was very interested to jump in. And that's what it is. It's about marketing yourself properly. You can be the best person in the world, but if nobody can reach you and see that you are marketable, you're not going to be picked up. And I think that's one of the, as I was saying, a series of fortunate events. You've made in your career, Jess, you've made yourself marketable in every facet that you could. You've shown that with a little bit of hard work here and a little bit of dedication there, it's grown that, hey, she can be on a stage here. And okay, now a little bit more hard, hey, she can be on the SI invitation. And I know Kanye is exactly that. He is working so hard, and the region around us is working so hard to put him into spaces where he can commentate on such a high level, and he produces that on a regular basis. So Kanye, for you, from Titan Gaming, I mean, I guess you can see that Jess's career has taken off with hard work and dedication and her fortunate events, and hopefully this podcast for us is your fortunate event.
You know what's funny is that you bring that up, actually, and a lot of people don't realize that a lot of things in gaming come out of a little bit of luck, a lot of hard work, and a little bit of that sparkling networking that no one ever seems to know what the magic formula for it is. And sometimes you slip in the networking, or you have to work your butt off networking through 100 different people. You get me on this podcast and I never forget his name. And it's one of those things where if someone ever brought up, hey, who's an up-and-comer? And I go, yo, I met this guy on this podcast once and he spoke really well. I bet you. And then all of a sudden that networking is done. And so I think that might have even just happened with me as well. There's people behind the scenes who say things about you and bring up your name, and have watched watched my stream once, or saw me coaching Penta and gone, hey, she's done this thing before. Or maybe it was even Imphian. If it was you, Imphian, shout out to you. And they just slip your name to someone, and all of a sudden that just takes off, and then that name kind of circulates around, and that's how it works. So for you right now to have reached out to me and gone, hey, I want you on the podcast. I want to grow my region. I want to do all these things. Here's my great setup of what I'm doing. Here's my vision for my region, so on and so forth. That shows me so much more motivation than I've seen from a lot of other people. And I guarantee all of the commentating and work that you've been doing to help elevate your region, and you yourself as a commentator and so on and so forth, is more than a lot of casters who want to be casters and commentators and talent as a whole have been doing in their regions. Because I think some people just think, oh, I can just raise my hand to cast something and then I'll get noticed, and that's how it works. It just endemically works like that. No.
I mean, I got to be honest, kind of how it worked for me. I was a high gold player, and so on the tournament Discord, they were organizing the tournament on. They asked, okay, are we going to have a cast? And I just go, I guess I can. And that was literally beginning of this year, and it's literally a passion project for me at this point. It's something I want to have a future in potentially, but I'm not even of age yet. I'm literally just casting as a passion project, seeing where it takes me.
I mean, that's how, if you don't cast with passion, you get tired of it very quickly.
Definitely.
It's so draining. I couldn't imagine Like that's like, imagine me. Used to love playing PUBG, for example. And if someone came to me and said, "Oh, come cast PUBG full time," I would be so, I couldn't do it full time. It's not something I have a huge passion in. So that's something that we need people like you. We absolutely do. We really do. You can't just come into the job and not have a passion for the game, because it's so draining. Like, you got to watch around. You have to understand everything that's going on. You have to be able to explain it. Things happen very quickly. As a commentator, you got to be quick and on your feet. I mean, man, I don't envy you doing it as a passion project to start off with, because that's how I started. And I tell you what, I was draining so many volunteer hours into casting. I was like, yo, I'll cast this game. I'll cast this game. And this is coming up. Let's cast this game. And after a while, you're just so used to casting things. You just love it. You just get stuck into it.
It is your natural habitat. Like, I feel comfortable in front of my mic. It's literally, I mean, I remember I've done, like, what was that? I think it was for Esports Faction, a Mauritian tournament, actually. My co-host had some internet issues, and I did a best of 5 until 3 in the morning with, like, schoolwork the next day. And I finished it all.
Right, exactly.
We all we all try and do what we can.
Yeah.
For the love of
Well
CJ.
done. Yeah, for the let's say love, like, let's label it love, and then underneath love, we whisper addiction, but like, we don't tell anyone that that's what it is. We just say love and passion.
Most
Yeah, that's it.
Hungry, do you have any other questions you still wanted to shoot towards us in the time you were absent, or?
No, I think we obviously discussed some things before, so I'd rather just leave it there. I think that was leave those topics off.
Yeah.
I know I'm asking you live on stream. You said you're not of age yet, Kanye. Can I ask how old you are, Hangry, or even just an age bracket of a kind? Because you both strike me as a lot more mature than I'm being led to believe.
Kanye, you?
I'm 17 on Monday.
On Monday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday for Monday. Thanks for telling me. That's awesome. You know what? I'm going to schedule a tweet for Monday just to say happy birthday.
Jess, you and I are 90 babies. So you're 95 and I'm 93.
Nice. Okay, cool. So when you look at someone like Kanye, and I know I'm derailing this a little bit, when you look at someone like him, especially from the age difference as well, do you see him as the future of your game in your region? Do you look at someone like him? Because I know a couple of people who I think of that, of a young nature, and I think to myself, they could be the future of casting or this or that or playing or whatever.
As I say, I think we're doing justice to our community and the what we're trying to build. If I don't see him as the future of where we're trying to get to, then I'm doing disjustice. I need to. We, as obviously the age we are, I'm trying to say that I'm not old.
We're still young.
We are still young. Who we are the. How can I put this? We are the industrial age of what we took over in the world. We have created this thing in a lot of chaos and a lot of mistakes here and there, and now it's our time to hand this thing over. It might not be a well-oiled machine. It might not be a machine that's working very well, but it's our.
Looking at your OBS going.
Mine is back. Okay. I thought Hangry died. I don't know what just happened.
Your internet just like cut out for like a whole 5 seconds, and I was like, oh, poor Kanye's dying, but this monologue is great. I was like, there we go.
Easy.
That's actually what I wanted to know, and the reason I asked it was because I think a lot of esports, we gatekeep things, and I think if there's one warning I can give to your region, is don't do what Australia did in some way, shape, or form. Is that we wanted to grow our region, so we put all of our stock and investment and everything into the Australian scene, and we grew it, but we were so enclosed to it being Australian that we never got help from anyone else. You know what I mean? Like, you sitting here with me from another region, sitting here with you talking about your region's problem. In Australia, people didn't do that. They spoke about it with each other. This echo chamber that Australia had with their problems in gaming and esports and everything was this echo chamber that never stopped. And had they have, and I still think they do that to a lot of the degree nowadays, you know, like I'm an Australian on an international stage, as are some of the other players and whatnot, with, you know, a fair, decent following. Some of the other Australians got much bigger following than I. But I could give so much to the Australian scene and Australian teams and gaming and esports in Rainbow Six as a whole if they gave me the platform to do that. But it's almost like I'm not Australian anymore. The moment I move to Europe, I'm not in anymore. You know what I mean? And so the biggest warning I can give is for your region is to prop up your people, but let other people from other more developed or more bigger platform areas help lift you up without gatekeeping people away from that growth that you guys could be. That's probably my biggest bit of advice.
Yeah, I think for Australia at least, you're a tiny you were a tiny community, sure, but you still had a lot more scale than, say, sub-Saharan Africa, where I probably know most pro players, tournament organizers, and team owners within this region, where it's a tight-knit community, but we are uplifting because we realize we're so small. We let people into that. We have a very closely knit circle, but in my experience, we let people in quite easily. Whereas I can't speak for you, but Australia, I mean, it's a bigger community at least. You guys, it's not as organized, I almost want to say. Whereas here, literally, we have a few people running it. We have a lot of good players, but literally only a few people at the core of it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Hanger is still here.
Yeah, Hangry's video is not currently on the stream. I shall do for you.
See what happens. See if you come back.
Maybe send. Oh, did you send a new link? No. Oh, there we go. Something happened, and nothing happened eventually.
Sometimes refreshing the source works, and then sometimes refreshing the source just doesn't work.
I think
Welcome to OBS.
I've had people in chat just say they had connection issues as well. So I don't know if the entire essay just had like a small 5-minute...
A little blip.
A little blip, but yeah, I actually think quite a lot of people had an outage for like 5 or 6 seconds.
Oh my God.
Bring it back to the things stunting our growth, load shedding, the internet issues.
I mean, if you guys are like mid-game and then you guys all have this blip, or even like 1 or 2 players have this blip, I mean, like, and you're mid-round or whatever, I like, in my mind, that's just like, that's round ending sometimes. You know what I mean? Like we had yeah. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my God. You know, most of my friends and everything are from North America and the European region. And since I've been in Australia, when I stream, for example, like after this podcast, I'll jump on my stream and play. And my North American, European friends will play with me from their countries. And it's awful ping. And sometimes I'll play on the European servers, you know, like with my co-casters and stuff before we start broadcast, we'll play together. And I'm on like 300 ping from like Southeast Australia, right? All the way to like West Europe. And it is god awful. Like my shots don't register for like 2 solid seconds. And you know what 2 solid seconds does in Siege? No matter how good I am, right? I'm flicking to people. Like someone starts shooting me and I have flicked to this person's head, but it doesn't matter because you know what? 300 ping doesn't care about how good you are as a player. It only cares about how long you've been shooting 2 seconds previous to that. So I know what it's like ever since I've been stuck here in Australia. I know what it's like to play with ping. And I seriously get so mad about it that I've just ended up playing on Australian servers, which are not fun because everyone just wants to frag. No one knows how to drone or anything, and it's just driving me insane. So, yeah, ping's awful. It's god awful. That's true. Mm-hmm. Really? Wow.
Yeah, I've actually wanted to ask, because you're currently in Australia, but working with
Yeah.
European production. I mean, you realize you have ping even on this. How is it?
Yes.
I've actually wondered this because I've done casting where sometimes one person is like 50 milliseconds behind, and that gets to me.
Yep.
You probably, what, like
Yep.
300 to 400 milliseconds behind, which probably really, in what's the word for it, inhibits
Yep.
your
There we go.
casting capability. I mean, you're literally behind your co-host.
I watched back some of our recent casts with my new duo Desitu, and he's someone that I feel has really enabled me growing as a commentator, especially a color commentator. I think if I lose him as a duo, I don't know who could replace his level of I guess duo-ness. I have a lack of word for that, but the way that he synergizes with me is just amazing. I've never really felt like that with another co-caster, and I'm not a caster by trade. I don't think people realize when I signed a contract with Ubisoft, I was an analyst. I came in believing I was going to be an analyst. I got my contract and it said host, caster, analyst, and I went, 1 second, because I've only done like casting CSGO and, you know, a couple of other things and low level Siege back in the day. And you want me to be a host, caster, and an analyst? I'm like, that's a little strange because this is tier 1. You sure you want me in that zone? And I had 4 months until the contract started. I worked my ass off to be a caster, and it turns out I can kind of color cast now, which is, thank God, let's go. I'm not just an analyst. But I watched some of the casts back, and the way that Des and I are able to synergize, even though we can't see each other, I can't give him hand indications. He's got that delay between me finishing, him starting, vice versa, trade-offs, transitions, pass-offs. We can't, when you're online, you can't do anything you would do in a studio. It is literally impossible. I don't think people know how hard it is to work online. You're sitting in a chair, you're probably lazing back, you're not keeping up the energy like you would if you were in person. And some of our casts are as if it sounds like I'm casting from the studio with him. To produce that kind of level with him online, like I can't wait till we're together in the studio, because like we're just gonna absolutely, like, I hope, blow it away, because some of the stuff we've been able to do with our pass-offs almost seamlessly, you wouldn't even think we were online. Like that was cool. Listen to some of that stuff and knowing that I've got this huge delay from Australia and he's all the way in the UK and our studio was in Paris. I mean, that was magical, especially in stage 2. That was magical to hear some of that stuff and just go, you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know I was in the bottom of near Antarctica. You wouldn't even know it. So, I mean, yeah, it's a problem for sleep because I work nights only and I sleep during the day. Because of the time schedule. So I'll sleep from like 9 a.m. to about 5 p.m. every day. But yeah, other than that, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, you're right. Ping is a thing everywhere in my life at the moment.
I mean, I started my career during national lockdown. The co-host I used to work with, I only saw his face after 2 months. I did not know what the guy I was casting with looked like.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, the things the internet does, man. Oh my God.
I mean, I tweeted
Wow.
about this a few days ago. Like, at this point, literally, you can reach out to anyone. I mean, chat.
Yeah.
I reached out to Jess literally through a Twitter DM that I just shot after she
Yep.
replied to one of my tweets. And I keep on saying it. A kid from anywhere in the world can connect to anything and build anything
Yeah.
through connections if he just manages it right. It's that easy. I mean, sure, they are.
I mean, you're well spoken though. I think that's the difference, probably to warn people, is
Definitely.
that someone like you, who is very well spoken, very mature, and comes out with an idea and inspiration to someone like me. And that's not to say that, you know, I'm on some other different echelon. If you treat me with respect, you'll absolutely get it back. I don't care who you are. You could be George Clooney or, I don't know, the homeless person on the corner. To me, it's no different. You're the same. You're a human being to me. But the way you spoke to me and the way you came to me, I went, ooh, you seem interesting. And that's the difference for some people, is that someone sounds interesting and mature and engaging over someone who goes, hey, what's up? You know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I get that 20 times a week. What's the difference here? You know what I mean? So for you, I think that's probably a big props to you, is that 17 for you is just a number. I'll be really honest. You might happy birthday for Monday, but I absolutely think that's just a number when it comes to you. So I would seriously consider, sticking your guns with what you're doing and even elevating yourself a bit more in your scene. Because if you come to me and you gauge my interest, there's no way you're not gauging other people's interests in your community and beyond as well. So I'd be really interested in following your story if you don't mind. And I'll probably pop your follow on Twitter and stuff if you can keep that updated. And Hangry as well, the fact that you get to foster such talent throughout, and the way you've spoken to me tonight, I'm very impressed. I jump on a lot of podcasts, but this one by far has probably struck me as one of the most interesting ones, and ones that I really probably do want to follow. Quite seriously. So well done. And even with all your internet issues, you made this a blast to be part of. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate it. Yeah, and as I said, it's good. It's important to grow the young talent, and
Yeah.
I think we're definitely trying our best to get there. And I mean, Titan Gaming is we're a small little organization, and we started small, but we are trying to grow and be examples in the community, just like ATK. You know, everybody looks up to ATK because of the way that they interact and the way that they handle themselves, and that's all props to them. And all these other teams that we've got are exactly the same. There's a lot of people out there looking up to them. And there's a lot of people out there looking up to Kanye, and there's a lot of people watching this that are looking up to Jess, that, hey, we can do this. And we get a lot of support for that. And we thank you for your support. I mean, Jess, where can everybody that's watching, where can they get you if they don't know, if they want to find out a little bit more? I mean, we've talked a lot of topics today, so they should know a lot about you, and there's going to be a quiz after this. But where can they catch you? Where, in terms of your socials, go for it.
Well, I was lucky enough, outside of Instagram, of course, where I had to argue with another Australian woman to let me have the tag. I'm JessGOAT everywhere. So I've managed to get the JessGOAT tag on every platform, Instagram, Twitter, but mostly I do most of my talking through Twitter. It just seems to be the Rainbow Six social media platform for some reason. A lot of other games use Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but for the most part, Siege is really heavily in Twitter. So if you're thinking about where you can gauge most of the information, Twitter is probably really the place to do it. So that's where you'll find most of my stuff. I do have a YouTube stuff, but it's mostly for funny, ridiculous stuff. And then I do stream on Twitch as well, where, you know, if you want to catch me live, you want to ask me live questions as well, that's probably where I like to do most of my live talking. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Just go it everywhere, as it sort of says, you know, below.
I mean, I guess more importantly, watch APAC or European Pro League, and you're sure to see her in action.
I will say I'm on Twitch 7 days a week. 2 of those are my own personal stream, and 5 of those are like Ubisoft casting. Go listen to me cast and then come into my stream and tell me that I'm the same person, because I am very professional when I work, and when I play Siege for fun and entertainment, it's another world that you go into. You see the real Australian in me. So I think I like to hit all spectrums of Siege, both the entertainment and the really serious professional part of it. So I like that.
I remember one of my very first interactions with you was you were playing, and I noticed that you had C on Vault.
Oh,
I remember that, and I was like, so you play spacebar as crouch, and then you were like, yeah, and then the guys were commenting, yeah, but she broke her finger, and then you just went on and you started explaining, and it was just this wonderful chat, and I was like, this is actually fun. This it's a good time in a chat. So anybody listening, do follow there. Have a look in. It is very fun. And as she says, it's a completely different to the Pro League. You know, there's the serious Jess that gets so involved in the game and excited and standing. I mean, we see all the clips from the Ubisoft standing in the chair. And, you know, I don't know what the clip was, but you called someone out for actually killing them. It was all over Twitter and over YouTube recently. And then you'd go into the stream and it's just telling Randys that they're bad at the game and applauding guys that do play well.
It's always a joke, though. It is always a joke. It's never serious.
It's just it's definitely a time to be. So definitely join in there and have a good laugh with them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. I mean, we you know where to get JessGOAT. Obviously, thank you so much for joining. This has been a really entertaining chat. So much I've learned from this. Insights. I think everyone in chat could say they're better off after hearing you talk about everything you did than before. So really, thank you for joining us. It's been insane.
An absolute pleasure.
Literally, it's just.
I will say it's probably been more of a pleasure for me because you don't get to see this part of Siege. Sometimes when you're at the top, you just look down and you just kind of see everything as a big pool. And for me, I miss being part of those little interactions. You guys are those little interactions that are building up to the big thing. I don't want to miss that because when you miss the growth of something, you just see where it got to. You never really get to see the really cool parts of it. And you guys are the really cool parts of your region now. I need to follow this. I feel like if you didn't have me on, I wouldn't know that this was happening. Let's be honest, because when you're following multiple other regions, there's only so much you can follow. So for me, it's been a pleasure to be on here because I really feel like this deserves to be known. And I'll probably make it a lot of my mission now to make this more well known as best I can. So if you guys have competitions coming up, if you've got grand finals, for example, let me know. Just shoot me a message and I'll see what I can do to get the word out there.
I'll definitely keep in touch.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah, so thanks so much, guys, for joining. Hungry Camel, if you want to shout anything out for yourself, obviously you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly like you, Jess. I've done the hard work to get Hungry Camel across all my socials. So anywhere you can go look, you will find exactly that. If you guys looking for a good cast to South African or local or even international games, the guy to my right, Kanye Defuse, thanks for the host, man. Thanks for the podcast. And thanks for making this all happen. Obviously, we're all brought to you by Titan Gaming, but, you know, Kanye is a Titan within our industry, and he deserves the role he's in. He deserves everything that's coming to him. Thanks for everything, man. You go for it.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining. This has been the Chats with Kanye podcast featuring none other than JessGOAT. A very entertaining chat. And chat, I hope you guys had a good time. This is going to go up as a VOD on both the Titan as well as my own YouTube channel. If you want to go watch it later, maybe share it with some friends or family, wherever you want. It's going to be up there. So be sure to maybe check it back, hear some things you missed out on maybe. But as always, this has been the Chats with Kanye podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. Cheers.